Earlier this week, a Reddit post was made on r/Internet Mysteries that described a disturbing website from the early 2000s that allegedly sold body parts. To back up, about 20 years ago, a friend of mine told me about e-Cuerpos.com. It was in Spanish and claimed to be selling cadaver parts worldwide. I see links that link to blogs that discuss head transplants, artificial life, and other bizarre philosophical thinking. Has anyone ever heard of this? The website e-Cuerpos.com doesn't exist anymore. However, using the Wayback Machine, we can see that it was active for just under a year. It was created in late 2005 and shut down in the summer of 2006. The homepage of e-Cuerpos is about what you'd expect based on the Reddit post description. There are advertisements on the top of the page with tons of links everywhere else on the site, mostly to body parts of both males and females, including arms, legs, eyes, and pretty much everything in between. You could have even bought a full human for nearly $200,000. Each limb or piece of a human that the site would offer came with a full description and even general information like age, size, color, and origin. We learn a little more under the Company tab. It reads, e-Cuerpos has proudly served the South American market since its founding in 1994. Through e-Cuerpos, you can order human bodies and limbs from anywhere in the world. e-Cuerpos guarantees 100% satisfaction on all of its products and services. Well, that's assuring. The website came with not only a 5-star review system, but also a comment section under each product to allow people who may have purchased something to leave a review. It's a real body, no jokes or frustration. These here were very nice, fresh, and sharper than most of the others. The eyes from other companies look like they were gouged out with a fork or damaged in shipping. The e-Cuerpos eyes come in a special humidifier chamber so they stay fresh until delivery. I would definitely buy eyes from them again. On the page titled Relación con los Inversionistas, or Investor Relations, it explains that e-Cuerpos.com is meant to supply human bodies and limbs to medical personnel and/or researchers around the world who need them. So, case closed, right? e-Cuerpos.com was just another website that sold cadavers to medical institutions. Well, on the surface, it may look that way, though things get much weirder as you start to take a look at some of the other links. There are 2 apparent user reviews endorsing the website on the right-hand side of e-Cuerpos. One is Soren Gilgadesmin, and the other is only known as Joel, who claims to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. Impeccable service, fast and efficient shipping. Very good, e-Cuerpos. Underneath is a link to C1D1T1.com. Meaning C1Do1Teach1, the website existed around the same time as e-Cuerpos. C1D1T1.com was run by a small group consisting of 3 men and 1 monkey, which, now that I'm saying it out loud, sounds like the title of a cursed live leak video. In the About Us section, we can see the names and pictures of the individuals behind the website: Joel, Kenny, and Dan. Joel, who was also shown on e-Cuerpos, describes himself as not good with people and mentions the fact that he lives with 2 others, presumably Kenny and Dan, whose bios are much more entertaining than Joel's. When I am not immersed in research or working out engineering solutions, I am rolling in my 6'4" with 16 switches hitting on the bitches. Don't stare at my picture for too long because you will fall in love. I love girls who love girls. I also love dogs. I believe that life is like school and death is like graduation, but not to college. Things get interesting on the first real post made. Titled Ondine's $1 Million Curse, Joel, the alleged CT surgeon, writes about Ondine's curse, which is another name for congenital central hypoventilation syndrome, or CCHS. It's a rare neurological disorder that causes breathing problems when asleep and sometimes even when the person is awake, in more severe cases. Joel continues writing. Anyway, cool story, but say you still have your brainstem intact, and your phrenic nerve as well. Then what would it be like like to be able to talk and move your face but have no control of your arms, legs, or bowels? Wouldn't it be better just to be a disembodied head, no body to worry about, no bowels, no skin to ulcerate, no 150 pounds of flesh to be heavied around by some visiting nurse? If you could just filter the blood, regulate the ions, add the glucose, and you could do this with machinery that exists currently, you could have a self-sufficient head without all the problems of having a body. Joel, later on that same page, implies that he has already been experimenting and testing on rats in his crusade of research. The next page has Joel yapping about the film Young Frankenstein and his infamous burrito incident, which leads him down a path of talking about anesthesia and needles. It feels a little cruel sometimes to poke people with needles and electrodes. Somehow, once they're sedated, the patients don't seem to mind too much. The monkeys, though, they squeal. Poor little monkeys. A few pages later, past some of Kenny's total unseriousness, Joel continues and further explains his motive for trying to separate a head from its body. Now, it's no secret that my current crazy project is to try to remove a head from its body, for the purpose of preserving its life and personality. But to think that the body will miss the head is totally ridiculous to me. The reverse would have been more plausible, but I guess the figure of a head riding a horse is just not that imposing. As the days go on, more and more posts are made. Joel continues to document and write about his thoughts and plans for how to achieve the separation of head and body. Eventually, we start to see more and more of Joel's housemates, Kenny and Dan, who make appearances in helping out with his research. Under the post titled "Field Studies Suck," Kenny writes about an idea Joel had in his research, where he himself, Joel, wanted to completely numb his body from the neck down, using an anesthetic. He wanted to see what the patient care experience might be like for a bodily challenged individual, so we hooked him up with a ropivacaine epidural. His entire lower extremity was numb for 6 friggin' hours. The video of the whole process unfortunately doesn't work and wasn't archived, though we are still left with a few pictures of it. On the page DOA or Your Money Back, Joel mentions e-Cuerpos.com. I was looking for medical cadavers online, but they are pretty difficult to procure. Then I found e-Cuerpos.com. Dead bodies in the States are a total rip. e-Cuerpos has a great selection and their prices are very reasonable. I got a great hand from them a few months back, and so today it is I who give them a hand. Kudos, Cuerpos, I can hardly wait to get my corpse. So Joel states here that he just straight up bought a body off of e-Cuerpos.com. And 3 days later, Kenny writes about Bernie, a 240-pound hairy body that they supposedly bought off of e-Cuerpos. The first video of the group that still works to this day is on the next page, which shows Joel and Kenny sitting next to Bernie, the alleged body they bought off of e-Cuerpos. I'm gonna have to blur or maybe crop it out because, well, we're on YouTube, but here's the video.
What I totally don't get about Weekend at Bernie's, or what's most obvious, is their just complete lack of understanding of the disintegration of the cadaver they're using throughout the filming of the movie. If they were doing that, it wouldn't be good. We deal with this every day. We gotta have these fresh, frozen cadavers. We freeze them and thaw them as we need them, But trouble with that, though, is a freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw that eventually breaks down the thing. You ask any cook.
Yeah, if you ask any cook, they'll tell you that the more you freeze something, that you lose the spore molecules. And if you lose spore molecules, it crystallizes. And
it freezes.
It turns into shards of ice. It makes it hard for its mechanical and elastic properties to work with.
You can imagine those shards of ice, they're like blades cutting into the flesh and into the tissues. That's totally crazy.
It's a texture.
Yeah, it's a texture. You imagine a steak. You freeze a steak, thaw it, freeze it, thaw it, freeze it, thaw it. Eventually it's going to turn into mush. It's just all those shards of ice are going to cut the tissues. The juices are going to flow out, and it's just going to be like gruel. Who wants that?
Joel and Kenny talk about cadavers and the problems with the movie Weekend at Bernie's. For those unaware, Weekend at Bernie's, in a super simple summary, is a comedy about two employees that end up with their dead boss, Bernie, and pretend he's alive throughout the whole movie. And as you can probably guess, this is where they got the idea to name the body they received from e-Cuerpos.com Bernie. Now, all of you watching couldn't tell because I blurred it, but Bernie in this video doesn't really look deceased. The video was made in 2005, so of course it's going to be more pixelated than a Japanese adult movie, making it hard to see what's actually going on. But there's a few seconds in the video that appear as if Bernie is breathing. However, I'm still not 100% sure Bernie is actually alive, so I am still gonna blur it, especially after watching the second and final appearance of Bernie in video form, titled Bernie Comes Alive. Joel is seen wearing scrubs, talking about a procedure he is about to do on Bernie when, well, take a look.
So monkey parts and human parts are basically the same. They both have the same vessel supplying the brain. It's going to be different practicing on a dead human though versus a live monkey, but practice is practice. So today I'm going to be practicing isolating the carotid and vertebral arteries on both sides. We need to isolate them, the ones that supply the neck and the face, and sort of like tie them in, both superficial and deep ones. I'll tie them in. Not sure how it's going to work. Could get a little ugly, especially if the skin starts to slough off. Oh, Jesus!
Where'd it go?
He went that way.
In the video, Dan and Kenny play a prank on Joel by somehow electrocuting or doing something to make Bernie's right arm shoot up for a second, which causes Joel to run out of the room. Throughout the whole video, Bernie doesn't breathe at all, though I'm still about 75% sure this whole Bernie thing isn't actually real. Moving on, the very last guest of this website is the legend himself, Heddy the monkey, the final test subject of this whole research project. Under the post, I need a monkey, Joel writes about needing a, monkey, while linking beniagra.in, a website that apparently sold monkeys, sharks, cubs, and much more. There's a page on the site that explains how to cook the pets they sell for meals, though we'll talk more about this site later. Pretty soon, Dan, who appears to grow fond of Heddy very quickly, becomes almost friends with the monkey, leading to Dan questioning their whole research process.
Being a medical student and dissecting living creatures doesn't seem like the right thing to do. I think that we should cut up things that just aren't alive.
In the coming days, Joel continues to post about how he plans on separating his new test subject Heddy's head from his body, while somehow finding a way to allow Heddy to talk after the procedure. Dan, now even more attached to Heddy, begins having nightmares.
So, it's about 7:30 in the morning. Had some crazy dreams about monkeys and decapitated heads again. I don't know. I'm more into this body, having no body, but more on the level of mind over matter rather than getting rid of a body completely. It seems like it's going to be a lot of work.
As a reminder, this whole website, C1D1T1, was a blog, and Joel begins to get some hate mail online from his viewers, but he doesn't really address any complaints and just laughs it off. On October 11th, Dan escapes with Heddy and leaves the group. In about a week, Dan sends an envelope with a film cartridge to Joel and Kenny at the place they were staying, but it doesn't work. And that's basically it. The very last post is Joel writing about how MTV made a website named Head Off Body, and Joel jokes about wanting credit for the idea. Nothing was ever added or posted again until the website was taken off the internet in the next year. Now, 18 years later, their emails are deleted and each of their MySpace links above their photos don't work, and were not archived on the Wayback Machine. So as of now, this website is all we have. Before we talk theories on this whole situation, there is just one more website linked and shown on e-Cuerpos.com that I want to talk about briefly. CALResCo.org, a website made in 1998 that is still up and working till this day. This website is huge. Most of it is about science, philosophy, and a sort of spiritual reflectiveness, though not really religious. The homepage reads, "Welcome to the complexity and artificial life research concept for self-organizing systems." Although the site was made in the late 90s, almost 30 years later, it still remains mostly the same as far as I can tell. There are quotes scattered everywhere from famous philosophers or just important people throughout history. It seems like a legitimate site that talks about complexity science or complex systems, which I think covers how different things interact with each other in a deeply thoughtful way. So if you are wondering why your neighbor that you don't get along with's dog takes strangely human-sized dookies every day on your front lawn, and how that affects the Earth's climate, that would be a complex system. I found only one page that mentions it in passing, but other than that, there's literally no mention of CALResCo.org anywhere on the internet, which is pretty surprising. The only question is, why is it shown on e-Cuerpos.com? Although CALResCo mentions artificial life, I haven't been able to find any direct connection between itself and e-Cuerpos or even C1D1T1. However, for now, let's forget all about CALResCo.org and focus more on e-Cuerpos and C1D1T1. There are two main theories that I think are the most plausible, and one of them is likely the truth, at least in my opinion. The first being, all of it is true. e-Cuerpos was really a medical website based in South America that sourced and shipped out human bodies and parts. Joel, who was, or maybe still is, a CT surgeon, found the website and bought Bernie off of it, as well as the other hand he mentioned buying previously. Joel bought these in an attempt to further his research in the successful separation of head and body, to preserve the person's personality and consciousness. Then, the group, Joel, Kenny, and Dan, bought Heddy off Beniagra before Dan ran away with him. To me, there are some important facts that give credence to this all being real. e-Cuerpos.com is entirely made in Spanish and apparently based in South America. Beniagra is registered under .in, aka in India, but it might be possible to register a domain in another country, I'm not entirely sure. Lastly, they have a fucking monkey. Now I don't know about you, but I wouldn't say it's particularly easy to acquire a monkey. Although maybe I just don't have the business connections these guys had. The second plausible theory I have about this whole situation is that it's all fake. Someone, most likely Joel, created e-Cuerpos and the blog C1D1T1 with the intention of making up some obscure story with all of his bizarre research and acting to maybe bring attention to his MySpace page or career, if he was like an aspiring actor or just had a passion for making strange art projects. I'm just spitballing because there are a lot more possibilities, if it is indeed fake. One thing that kinda adds to this all being fake is that e-Cuerpos, C1D1T1, and Beniagra were all created around 2005 and ended sometime around 2007. It could be a complete coincidence, though CALResCo.org, the only confirmed legitimate website involved, was made in 1998 and is still running, whilst having no direct connection to any of the other sites. And the most damning evidence of this all being fake is that Beniagra.in, the site that Joel allegedly bought Heddy on, has this video.
Hey, I am Beniagra. You need a cobra, tiger, even a baboon, then call me Beniagra. You will receive the animal in 30 days or less. Granted.
I highly doubt an actual website that was selling pets to be eaten created and posted a video that looks like an early 2000s parody commercial. But who knows, real, fake? Let me know your thoughts and theories in the comments below.